Hello there, welcome to this new show. It's about Asian genre films. I'll be going back soon to do some Beautiful Disasters, which is going to restart with Streets of Fire. But today I'm going to talk about Battles Without Honour or Humanity, which is a 5-film series, one long story, made by the director of Battle Royale. But these are just early films, these are just first series of well-regarded films. So basically you have the first one, Battles Without Honour or Humanity, then you have Hiroshima Deathmatch, then you have Proxy War, then Police Tactics, and finally the final episode. 4 of the 5 were written by one person, the 5th one was written by a different writer. But generally they're all consistent of the same actor, so the lead character continues through all the movies. They've got the same style, which is very rough, very pretty much the camera is handheld and it will always keep to the characters. It's not really trying to do classical framing. It wants you to know what's going on, but it won't actually, it doesn't mind doing the shaky cam stuff that was not really popular until 20 years later in American cinema. But here it was done really well because they didn't overdo it. It wasn't like it was just following people and they fight you down and dirty, and they give you a sense of reality. So it was a very influential film in terms of how to stage fights in a genre film. So it was also a change from the genre films in Japan from the past. In the other genre films were much more stylized to be classical and to actually have a sense of like a past honour, there was some honour among thieves type of thing. In this one, you really couldn't trust the thieves. You really, everyone was out for themselves. They might say they believe in something that was the past, but it's not really true. They're just out for themselves, out for money, and they're out for making any advantage for themselves, even if it makes no sense. So they'll do anything to get ahead, but the tactics they use a lot of time is very self-destructive. I mean, there were films before that, like Retaliation or Massacre Gun, that had a kind of same cynical feel, like basically that the Yakuza were just horrible people, but this one really pushed it to the fore. Like this is not a good place to be. So the film series starts just after the World War II, and it's about the people who have come back and they're under American occupation. They hate the Americans. There's no jobs, there's no nothing. So slowly they start to form a group, basically to take over Hiroshima. Because I mean, that's where most of the series takes place. So they're going to actually take over this whole town, dominate it. Oh, it's a suburb of Hiroshima, but they're going to take over it, dominate the whole thing, and basically get the money from the people and be well set up as Yakuza. That's the idea, but it's very rough and tumble. They have to defeat other gangs, which means leads to them losing some people who were their friends. They all end up having jail time, and by the time they come back out of jail, or the lead character comes back out of jail, basically the Yakuza has formed around a person who appears to be very loyal, but in actual fact isn't. So the whole of the first movie is about the lead character trying to work around the Yakuza boss, who's actually not just a thief by profession, he's a thief of his own people. He just has no respect for them, and he'll whine and he'll beg and he'll do anything, but he's just a liar. So he'll manipulate everyone into doing whatever he needs so that he can survive. And that's what's fascinating about the movie, is the idea is it's not a stoic character who's going to lead these Yakuza. It's this person who should be killed but who isn't, and the lead character who's much more for a traditional Yakuza has to deal with the consequences of this guy who is a problem. And you just see how that evolves to infighting, how it evolves to everyone turning their back on your lead character, and it becomes this much more complicated story about how Yakuza actually works. Because it was based on a series of articles, the whole series is based on a series of articles, so they're based mostly on careers of criminals who lived in this area at that time. So the whole series spans like 25 years. But the first one does a lot of jumping because it goes from like the late 40s to like the early 60s. After that, it becomes more concentrated in stories that take place over a small period of time. The second one has a new central character, a guy who's just got out of jail and is trying to get into the Yakuza and, you know, become a person who could make a living in it. He ends up falling in love with a person he shouldn't, and he's a very impulsive, destructive person ultimately, so it causes lots of havoc. The lead character in the first battle film is in it, and he's to the side, he's now starting to try and create his own family, create his own little piece in the town without having to deal too much with the people he can't stand. But he ends up getting involved and all hell breaks loose. To me, this is kind of the weakest one because you suddenly switch to a different character, and the character's good, but it's not as good as the guy who's going to taste for the rest of the series. So it becomes a problem. But it's still a very good film. I'm not saying people's names in these films because I'm going to butcher them, so that's why I'm saying lead character, because I will butcher the supposed name of the actors or anything like that. I'm terrible with names, I'm terrible with pronunciation. So the third film is Proxy Wars, and that's just how they're starting to expand, and just basically how the wars are continuing, and how, I mean, part 3 and part 4 are ultimately, part 4's police tactics, it's really about how them trying to switch between the old style of gangster where everyone was corrupt, everyone had a take, you could bribe people, people knew what the social order was after the war. In the 60s it changes to become more corporate, and it's about how the gangsters now try and switch over to a new style. So that's what the story is going to be for the rest of the series. So part 3 and part 4 are essentially, they're two parts of the same story. It's about how the gangsterism gets out of control, how the Yakuza still keep their fighting, still these massive fights and murders in the front of everybody, but how the police and the public turn against them and are now demanding the police hunt them down. And it's how do they react to that. And there's a new gangster that comes up who's trying to manipulate everyone to actually change over and make the Yakuza more modern. And it's really about how he manipulates everything to actually achieve his wants, really. So that's basically, those two movies are about how Yakuza have to change with the times. And that's what I really like about these films. I'm not going into the exact plot details or anything, but they're about change and about how some people can change and some people are trapped in the past and the complications of change, and how this, what you think is a very structured society of the Yakuza, even it has to be affected by the change, and how it evolves over time, and how people are, who were once very important, are now kind of thrown to the side because they're no longer as important, because the needs of the society become, we need less violence, and your way is no longer the way that's going to get that. The Yakuza now have to make their money quieter and with less style, because people will report them now, and so they have to actually be quieter and more brutal, but behind the scenes. So by the time we get to the final episode, which is called the final episode, it's about how that new Yakuza can organise itself and what happens to the people left behind. Like the guy who organised the changeover ends up in jail at the end of the 4th episode, as well as the lead character of the series. They both end up in jail. That was meant to be the end of the series. They ended up doing a final episode where they're both out of jail and now dealing with the fact that the Yakuza has moved on without them. So even the guy who arranged a changeover of Yakuza to a more corporate level and who chose a successor has to deal with the fact that his successor's not who he hoped he would be. And how do you deal with these kind of people? How do you deal with your own legacy? And basically the idea is the lead character, these two characters, the one from the far past and one who you think is more up to date, both of them feel out of date, both of them eventually retire because there's no point for them being there anymore. There's nothing for them. They're not really fitting anymore. So that's the whole thing. It's just basically the regression of a life in the Yakuza and how it changes with the times and how deceitful their contemporaries are and how they have to be very careful. What's important of the series is it's all about how the social structures impacting the characters, how they have to always change with how society's changing around them. They can't just be, I am this person, I will do this and you will all follow me. It's the way you see it in a lot of movies where the world's defined by the lead character and what they want. In this, lead characters have to be a lot more able to change. They are not defined, but they don't define the world. They are defined by the world, and their own characteristics have to adjust. Even if they don't change that much, they have to find ways around problems because instincts might not be relevant anymore. So that's the beauty of the films, is that they're about the world. They have a central character whose story takes you through that world, but he's not the. That's not the focus of the stories. The stories are how this world changes. So it's a wonderful series. I mean, those five films. You can buy them in the UK. You can buy them as a pack of 5, or you can buy them individually through Arrowfilm. It's a very good box set. They're not very long each episode, so you can watch them. It doesn't take very long to watch them. They do feel like a long story, but the thing about them is, it's not that they're trying to say this is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. It's like they're individual stories within that world, and they evolve each story as the world evolves, and you see them in different situations. Even though certain things repeat, like because Yakuza tend to have the same instincts of this, so situations repeat because of the people involved, but the world around them just change. So you see how these things play out over time, and that's the strength of the world of set up. It's also the fact that the violence is very brutal without feeling like it's over the top. It just feels like this is a world with animalistic instincts, and this is the consequences of that. And it becomes less and less as the series goes on. They try to make it like they try to be corporate, so it becomes a bit more cultural, and they're trying to pretensions of being important, but they're still the same people, really. So the violence always explodes out eventually. So that becomes another theme of the violence and their instincts within different social structures. Where after the war, it's a natural. Everyone's feeling violent, but 20 years later, no one wants that anymore. So they are now people who are out of time. So the series has that feeling of how do you survive when you're no longer relevant to the way the world's evolving. So that's Bob's about Honour and Humanity. It's a terrific series. I've just skimmed the individual episodes because I'm sure you'll find other videos that go into more detail about each one. But this was just an overview of what the series is. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll enjoy my next one, which is going to be about female prisoner Scorpion. So I'll be back soon.